Hello and welcome back to EVE Online with me, Mark from DadX, and today we're back with the Algos, which we are going to take out and run some hideaways. A Forlorn hideaway and a Forsaken hideaway, and then we're going to go into a den. And if you can clear a den, I can guarantee you can clear a 3 out of 10 narcotics warehouse. So we've got a nice bio responder skin on today, looks very smart, but let's have a look at that fit, shall we? Up in the high slots, we have 5 Tech 2 125mm railguns. I am only going to use regular antimatter ammo in this video, just to kind of calm them down a little. I will show you a completely Tech 1 fit when we run through this one, and you'll see what the difference is in the DPS and the performance. But that gives us a full off range of 12 kilometers and an optimal range of just under 6.5 kilometers. And if I simulate the fit, you can see total DPS is just shy of 240. If I deactivate those railguns, we lose just over 100 DPS, about 102, 103. So most of the DPS is going to be the drones, but the railguns are definitely going to help speed things up. I have got a core probe launcher on this one just to do a bit of scanning as I'm going around. That's entirely up to you. That's not essential to running these sites. The hideaways and dens actually just show up on your probe scanner window. In the mid slots, we've gone for an Afterburner. We've taken off the micro warp drive. We don't need that much speed to run these sites the way that you might need in low sec for dealing with some of those rats and the technique that I use for dealing with them. We've got a compact cap battery. That gives us obviously more capacitor. It also gives us a resistance to being muted. That's not really that relevant right now, but it's the extra cap will be very useful. In the third mid slot, I've got a Stasis Webifier in there today, so if any rats get in close, I can slow them down, just makes them apply the damage better with the railguns. You could fit a target painter in there if you wanted to have a longer range on the boost you get into your application of your damage, and that would also apply to your drone, so that might be a handy option. I've got the Weber in there really because, as you saw in the last video, if I'm in low sec, I'm probably going to switch the cap battery for a warp disruptor so I can deal with people if I want to go and have a bit of a muck about on the belts. Down in the low slots, no change here at all. I've got a Tech 2 drone damage amplifier, I've got a Tech 2 damage control, and I've got a Tech 2 small armor repairer. That's going to repair 94 hit points every 4.5 seconds. The rigs are exactly the same, so I've got 2 rigs literally just giving me more base armor, the Trimark armor pumps. They're not the rigs that boost the repair rate. They are definitely an option, but as I said in the last video, while I'm actually just getting used to this ship and the fit and how brave to be with it, I've given it a little bit of an extra buffer of armor, so the rep has a little bit less to cope with. And I've got the one small hybrid collision accelerator that gives us an extra 10% DPS on our hybrid turrets. Down in the drone bay, I've only got in there right now the 5 Hobgoblins II I'm using on the Serpentis sites. In the cargo hold, I've got a flight of acolytes in case I go up to a drone site. I've got a selection of ammo. I'm just going to use the antimatter in these videos, the regular stuff, none of that posh expensive navy. And I've obviously got the Sisters core scanner probes. So there's probably about 5 mil in the cargo hold here. So the whole fit is about 12.4. But that's the Tech 2 version. If you're on a bit more of a budget or you've got lower skills, here is a Tech 1 version, which if I put some antimatter ammo in there. So this has got Tech 1 drones, it's got Tech 1 Meta 4 125mm railguns. We get the same ranges, 12 kilometers and 6.5 kilometers for the fall off and optimal respectively. We have lost about 30 DPS, probably about 32 DPS. So there's a bit of a drop there. All that is really going to mean on this kind of site running is that it'll take a little bit longer. It's not going to be decisive as to whether you can do it or not. I've also downgraded to a Meta small armor repairer, so we're now only getting 79 hit points repaired. But again, as you'll see in the running of the sites, if you run it appropriately, you won't really need to be doing much repping. And I'll show you what happens if you want to run it the exciting way at the end of the video. There are 4 types of hideaway. There's the regular hideaway, there's the hidden hideaway, there's the Forsaken hideaway, and there's the Forlorn hideaway. We're going to look at the Forsaken and the Forlorn today. The other 2 are basically simplified versions of these. So if you can do these, you'll do those no problem. The reason we run the hideaways is primarily to get escalations to 3 out of 10 dead sites, narcotic warehouses. You can get some reasonably nice loot out of the wrecks, but I wouldn't bank on it. And you can very occasionally get a Shadow Serpentis ship spawn, and if you're really lucky, doubly lucky, it might actually drop some good loot when you kill it. But that is very rare. So we've walked into the site at 0, we're going to lock up the first wave, which is frigates and destroyers, get the drones out. I'm going to set a 10km orbit on the listening post that's on the site, and get the Afterburner running. We're cap stable with the Afterburner running, as long as we're not repping, we're cap stable with everything else running. In fact, sorry, I should have mentioned that in the fit screen. Prioritize the destroyers. If they get in close, they're going to do the most DPS to you. So always when you're running sites, prioritize the small ships first, because they're going to come out to you quickest and mess with you. And always prioritize the destroyers over the frigates. Some sites specifically, that will vary. The frigates might be the ones that are going to get a point on you and keep you on site. But we're literally just going to munch through these waves. And we're going to put the railguns and the web on the ships as they come into range. Obviously with the drones, we've got a 40km, with this alt at least, control range for our drones. So we could just be sitting out a lot more long ranged, taking even less damage. But obviously it would just slow down the process. The reason I'm sticking to antimatter ammo here is, well, if I was using the Tech 2 ammo Javelin, I'd have shorter ranges, I'd have better tracking, I'd have about 20, I think 15 extra DPS. So the antimatter is going to do these sites absolutely fine, and I don't need the Tech 2 guns really, as I mentioned. But the reason I'm sticking just with the antimatter and not using other ammo types such as thorium or tungsten is because I have to go in and do this a little bit more quickly. And as you'll see, the basic difference between these two sites, the Forlorn and the Forsaken, is that on this site we're just going to get frigates and destroyers. So you don't want to let them get very, very close. As I said, I'll show you a clip at the end of what happens when you just sit in right where they spawn and how quickly the damage will then come in. So on this one, we need to keep a little bit of range from the frigates and control the killing of them so that they never get close to us and therefore can't ever apply their full damage. I'm going to speed the footage up to 2 times now. We may as well get flying through this. Here on the Forsaken site, you've got the initial spawn of ships that are there when you arrive, and then you get 3 additional waves which increase in number. You can then get a bonus spawn of a Shadow Serpentis frigate, which then may drop loot, as I mentioned earlier. But very often it's not very good, but it could be something nice, you never know. But as I say, these are probably the quickest and easiest way to get escalations for a 3 out of 10. The basic hideaway is literally just some frigates. They're very quick to run. The hidden hideaway is like a smaller version of the Forlorn hideaway, which we'll be looking at next, in that it has some bigger ships in it, not just the frigates and the destroyers. But it's a lightweight version of the site we are going to look at. And they're also a nice way of just learning how to fly your ship. You can see I've finally got in nearly to armour. And I have got some reps going prematurely. I've got lots of capacity to play with. But to be honest, these are the last 2 ships, so their DPS has dropped off so much. They're not really going to be much of a bother to me now. So yeah, there's the last one going down right now. He's a Guardian Defender, and as you can see, they are quite tanky. This is still at 2 times speed. My drones are on him, and he's taking just a little while to kill. But it's the catalysts, in this case, the destroyers. If they get in close to you and get their DPS on you, you will take a lot of damage very quickly. So there you go. Let's the Forsaken hideaway clear with no incident whatsoever. A tiny little bit of repping to do right at the end. But as I said, we played that right through with antimatter, as close in range wise as you'd ever really practically be, and there's no bother. The site is just cleared quicker. In fact, that took about 5 minutes. If you want to see a little bit more about using different ammo types with your railguns, then I suggest you look at either the Catalyst or the Cormorants doing the 3 out of 10 videos that I've posted. I'll link one of those in the end of this video. Yeah, I use a variety of ammo types there to kite and minimize the damage, whereas here the drones are kiting and the guns are there to clear up the mess. Anyway, we're off to the Forlorn hideaway now, a slightly different experience dealt with in a slightly different way. And it's always better to look before you leap, and of course I will refer you yet again to the EVE Uni Wiki Guide to Combat Sites. I'll leave a link in the description. Some very thorough guides. I think some of it's a little bit dated, but the general gist of everything is bang on. It's never steered me wrong so far. Anyway, we've got exactly the same kind of first wave going on here when we arrive. It's some very flimsy frigates. These ones won't tank at all. These ones will melt. And the drones are taking care of that very nicely. I am just burning in with my Afterburner towards the center of the site, because what we're going to get on this site, which is different from the last, is we're going to get cruisers amongst the waves, and the waves are going to be increasingly cruiser heavy as they spawn. So again, we'll just take out the frigates. These are still the very flimsy ones at the beginning. We're going to get in close to the cruiser, and we're going to get into our optimal. That's the ideal, and get the guns on him so they die nice and quickly. So that's the difference, is that with the frigate heavy spawns, and the destroyer heavy spawns I should say, you want to really keep a little bit of distance. So what we're doing here, as we're approaching each cruiser, we're killing the smaller rats on the way in, so they're never getting really an opportunity to apply their damage to us. The cruisers, once we're in close, just can't hit us anyway. With our Afterburner running, we're too fast and we're too close. So this is the tactic for the Forsaken Hideaway. Getting close to the cruisers, orbit them, kill the smaller rats on the way in using your drones and your guns as applicable. And this is where the antimatter really just helps take down these cruisers nice and quickly. So as you see, each wave will have more cruisers in it, which actually makes it safer for us, to be honest. We're going to take less damage off these cruisers than we would if we flew in this close to smaller ships. And it's always worth bearing in mind that running a site is about how to apply your fit. You've got two choices really when you're running a site, is to try to build a fit optimized for that site, or you can build something a little bit more general purpose and try to learn how to adjust your use of that fit for the running of that site. It's really up to you. It depends also on how locally you're flying, doesn't it? If you're based in one or two systems and you can switch ships and switch fits around to your heart's content, or you've got a mobile depot, or just nip into a local station to do that, you can do that. I generally just go out in quite a general purpose fit for most sites. The destroyers I just like cruising around in, especially in low sec, because you can go down to the belch, you can maybe get into a fight, you can run away pretty quickly. There you go, they're all gone. About 5 minutes again to clear that one. And never a hint of any hazard or danger to us. No escalations, unfortunately. They will show up in your agency screen if you do get them. They're by no means guaranteed. You can sometimes go through quite a few sites and there'll be no escalation. They'll be hiding from you. But anyway, that's the two hideaways. Now we're going to look at a den. And if you can do a den, you can do a narcotics warehouse. So here we are, we're out and about. We've actually just finished a den right here. So we've taken a little bit of shield damage, but nothing too scary and nothing to stop us heading straight over to the next site. I've lingered a little bit just to let the capacitor recharge. That's the priority rather than the shield. We're going to find the next den up here. We're going to warp in at 20. Never warp in closer than 20 unless you know what you're going to do, because you're going to take a lot of aggro if you land in. If you just click that arrow and warp to a den at 0, you're going to have a little bit of a panicked start to your run. So this is the calmer way to do it. Warp in at 20 and then we decide what we're going to do. We're not reacting to what the rats are doing to us. And what I mean by if you can do a den, you can do a 3 out of 10 narcotics warehouse is simply that I see a narcotics warehouse with the rooms being a series of dens, really, in their intensity, and in some ways, depending on the ship you're flying, a den can be much more intense than a narcotics warehouse is at any stage. Look, I've just got a level 5 killing rats badge. That's cool. Just need the bounties to keep up. Anyway, here we are, back to business. Now we're going to get to targeting up some of these rats. We're going to make sure we get one of these light missile turrets locked up, and we're going to get the drones set straight to work on him. Sorry, I said turrets. Of course, I meant towers. They're going to do the most consistent damage to us while we're up here because of their range and the fact we can't mess with their tracking. So while the drones are doing that, I'm just going to set a manual course across the front of the site, in effect, with the Afterburner running. The rats, the ships are going to kite out towards us, so as they do that and get into range, we're going to start setting about them with the guns and the Weber. And once the drones have taken down that first tower, we'll get those over to help us get rid of this little infestation that's starting to crowd in on us and get within 10k, which is where the damage starts building up, as you can see. So we'll get the reps going as appropriate sooner rather than later, but we can tank this no problem while we just get this little cloud of rats away from us, and then we'll get back to the missile towers trying to get those down, taking out the rats basically as they come out towards us, repeating this process until they're all dead. Again, the loot available on this actual site is pretty limited. You could get a decent module, drop in one of the wrecks. You may get the Shadow Serpentis spawn and he may drop some good loot. But again, this is really for the escalations. And these sites, the dens, these escalate to 5 out of 10 dead sites, which in Serpentis land is the hydroponic site. I've also done the Angels, what is it, the Red Light District. I did that with a Praxis. Alphas can do those 5 out of 10s. They take a while to do, and they're tricky to do in low sec because of the interruptions. You could get an escalation that you sell on to somebody who wants to go and do a 5 out of 10. That's an option. And now that bookmarks are even easier to share than they ever were before, it is something to bear in mind. There are 2 types of dens. One, again, has cruisers. One has just the smaller ships. And in case I didn't mention it up here on the den, prioritise all these destroyers again first, because they're going to have the heaviest deeps when they come and touch you. One thing I'm not sure about on the dens, my experience is mixed, and maybe this is where I ask you for your comments this week. I was told a long time ago that on dens you needed to destroy the bunkers, which are among the structures that are up here, in order to get the escalation. And I've definitely seen in the past that it was only when I destroyed the bunkers, if they were present on the site, because they appear in one of these 2 variants, it was only when I killed the bunkers that the escalation pinged up. So I was quite sure they're right, but then a couple of weeks ago I'm pretty sure I got one when I didn't kill the bunkers, but they were there. So it doesn't really clarify that on the EVE wiki actually either. So what do you think, and what's your experience? Do you bother destroying the bunkers if they're there on the den? And do you find that the escalation is dependent on whether you do or not? That's quite a good little shot there. There's a little thumbnail for sure. Anyway, there you go. That's the den cleared. And that only took 5 minutes, which is pretty fast too, to be fair. So well done, Algos. Yeah, it's definitely good at this kind of site, running these sites, for sure. Nice and reliable. And it also gives you a little bit of opportunity, especially if you want to stick with this antimatter game, to learn how to get in close, when not to get in close, fly your ship around, do a little bit of manual piloting, which can only stand you in good stead. Okay, so here we're back on a hideaway. I have not got my Afterburner running. That is my error here. I am orbiting that listening post at 10 km, but slower than I was before. That means the rats can get closer to me quicker. And look at what happens to the DPS. We'll also get a quick lesson here for those of you that haven't ever experienced it, in what to do when you abandon your drones, because you need to run. So, don't panic if it starts getting a bit hectic like this. There's nothing on these sites that is going to trap you on the site, provided you're not snagging a piece of scenery, which I've showed you how to make sure you avoid in previous videos. You're going to be able to warp out pretty much whenever you like. And we're getting quite nicely into Hull here now. Our reps aren't going to last much longer, so we are going to warp off. I did try to recall my drones. This is obviously running at 2 times speed. I don't need to tell you that. Yeah, I did try to recall my drones. They didn't quite make it back in time. That was on them. I gave them a call. Anyway, so this is what we're going to do. We're just going to hang out. We're going to go to a station. We're going to get repaired, and we're going to go back. So we're on our way back in now. I have put a flight of Acolyte 2s in the drone bay. I'm really honestly not sure if my drones are still going to be alive or not, but I'm pleased to say they are. Now if I had space in my drone bay, I could right click on the middle of my capacitor like this and reconnect the lost drones, but I can't because my drone bay is full, which takes up all the bandwidth. So I'm going to have to manually go around and scoop these guys up to my cargo hold, but that's fine. I can just do that as I'm finishing off the rest of this site right here. But that's how far you can kind of push your luck. I'm not suggesting you go as far into Hull as I did, but I'm just illustrating the point that on these sites, you're in control. You leave if you need to leave. And this is what to do if you happen to abandon the drones because they didn't pick up the phone when they were supposed to when you bailed out. Anyway guys, I'm going to leave it there. I'm very pleased to announce, I will do a special episode about this, but you'll be the first to know, the channel has been accepted into the CCP partnership program for content creators. So I shall be showing you what we get from that and how that benefits us very, very soon. I don't know yet, so I can't really give you the details. I know there'll be some good stuff for us to share. Help us make some even crazier content, hopefully. But I'm going to leave it there for now. I hope you've enjoyed looking at the Algos doing some of these sites. If I find a narcotics warehouse, I might run one. So if you're interested in sharing that with me, let me know. I'll publish that one too. We're rolling up a new Amar Alt who is going to be back very soon. And because we're going to have lovely low skills, they're going to be flying some low skill ships and making some quite basic new bro guides to ship fitting and stuff like that. Probably easier to do that kind of stuff when you've got a really low skill alt to do it with. But for now, leave any comments you feel like making. Leave us a like if you've liked it or you found this useful. It also helps me know which videos are the most value for you guys. Subscribe if you want to stay in touch. Take care of yourselves, look after each other, fly brave, and for now, goodbye.